Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Truth About Fantasy Football, the Grueling Truth Radio Network's weekly fantasy football show, brought to you by Gridiron Mo. Gridiron Mo is a new interactive football app that lets you call what an offense or defense would do in a live NFL game and compete against others around the country. Also, be sure to compete in their Super Bowl trivia quiz. Check it out at gridironmo.com or thegruelingtruth.net. I'm your host for the Fantasy Football Show, Matt Andruscavage, and I'd like to welcome in Oz Davis and Aaron Zepnick. Let's see who comes in first.
How you doing, Matt? How you doing, Oz?
Doing well.
Myself, I'm doing okay. I almost didn't make it here tonight, but Emmanuel Sanders saved my pride. So I did decide to do the show.
Emmanuel Sanders would have if he didn't do well, you would have ditched the show? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got a couple of teams at 1-6 or whatever. I'm not fit to do this show anymore. But Emmanuel, again, saved my bacon on Monday night. So thank you, Emmanuel Sanders. And thank you, Inferior Texans defense. It was very kind of you.
Most excellent. Well, I'm sure we had a lot of drama over the weekend. I won one game and lost the other because it actually ended up the A.J. Green Hail Mary ended up beating me.
How
that
about
was
it?
Painful, but I am still doing very well in both leagues. So didn't have a ton of drama over the weekend, but, man, as we get into these studs and duds, I've got two duds that I am so tired of them being duds. But, Aaron, I'll let you lead in with this.
Yeah, my studs this week, I actually did not start Jay Ajayi, and for the second week in a row, I had 200 yards.
200 yards, yeah.
Who could have predicted
Unbelievable.
that?
Yeah.
So I picked
And now
him
he's
up.
got even more impetus. And I wanted to kick this in, Aaron. You won't have Arian Foster to kick around anymore.
Yes, I know. I am very actually delighted about. I'm delighted about him retiring. I wish him a prosperous retirement.
I think the Miami Dolphins should be very delighted with that, and I think they should be delighted with Jay Ajayi. And if they're clever, they'll do the thing that certain other teams are doing, and they'll try and be run first. Now, I thought that's what my Rams were doing, but I guess it's not. They should just follow the Cardinals pattern and just hand the ball to Ajayi. If he can produce anything like this every week, just make it his team. Yeah, I mean, your quarterback's inferior, right? So.
Absolutely. And the other guy that continues to impress me is T.Y. Hilton, that receiver. He was a huge week.
Big week
for
again.
Me. Yeah, he had 7 catches for 132 yards and a touchdown. I wish he would have got a little bit more, but you can't be too greedy when the guy gets 7 for 132 and a touch. But also a couple sleeper studs. Ty Montgomery, who is now offered as a running back.
How about it?
In some leagues, not in Yahoo yet. I was hoping he'd be in Yahoo, but he's not yet. The Packers will have to actually list him at running back, so that's a change.
Well, he's been switched on Flea Flicker, and
yes,
he can be either a running back or a receiver now.
Right, that's interesting.
So if you have a flex position, Ty Montgomery is a must-start every week. If you have even a weak running back 2 or a Theo Riddick situation like I do, pick up Ty Montgomery if he's still out there. He's going to continue to get a lot of catches out of the backfield and should be a huge PPR addition if nothing else. So them are my
agree
for the week.
I think Ty Montgomery is a good pickup, and that he's one of my waiver wire guys when we get into that segment. But I have to say who my duds are. I have to get this off my chest. I can't believe these guys are duds. But if Allen Robinson, and the thing is, it's not these guys' fault.
You said you were going to talk about any of my guys.
I got to touch on Allen Robinson when you're done.
It's not Allen Robinson's fault, and it is not DeAndre Hopkins' fault. They have 2 awful quarterbacks throwing to them, and at least fantasy awful. Blake Bortles and Brock Osweiler, if you have them, get rid of them now. They're not good fantasy quarterbacks.
Oh, come on.
And they're killing 2 of the best receivers in the league.
I will tell you, I actually went out on a limb. I have T.Y. Hilton, okay? I have Cole Beasley, who's been pretty solid.
Yeah.
And I also have Deshaun Jackson, which isn't a bad play on a bye week. So I traded Allen Robinson away, which I think has been my best GM move so far this year. I traded him away, and I acquired Matt Jones and Travis Kelce for him. So now I have Devontae Freeman, Matt Jones, and Jay Ajayi to go along with Beasley, Hilton, and Jackson, and now I actually have a tight end better than Dwayne Allen. So,
especially with Dwayne Allen being injured.
Yeah, I needed a tight end in the worst way, so I'm like, you know what? Allen Robinson has been so wishy-washy. The Jaguars' offense, I'm sorry, Oz, I'm selling this Jaguars' offense. If you have any Jags, sit them until they prove they deserve to be in your lineup.
Really? See, that's interesting because Marquise Lee has been coming up. I was going to talk about it later on.
I thought about that. I would not say he's coming out. He's not scoring touchdowns, but he is leading the team in receptions.
Right, and the thing is, what's happening with Robinson is, and I mean, if you watch any of this game with the Jags last week, you'll see it. It's the thing that's happening with Osweiler and Hopkins in Houston. Not as dramatically, but these guys aren't on the same page. I mean, it's like dude's running a different route than what was called in the huddle. You know,
I think both quarterbacks are just missing the receivers.
This could be as well, but by that much, I mean, Osweiler's pretty bad.
Osweiler's really missing Hopkins. He's throwing balls in the dirt or way over his head or wherever.
Yeah. See, and it's not quite that bad with Bortles and Robinson, but I wonder if it's just, Bortles can't find the guy anymore. You know, he's just like, I mean, you're right.
Well, they have
Bortles
a bad offensive line. That's part of the problem. They just don't have a good line.
That also hurts. Yep. I mean, Blake.
I'm not saying Bortles is a terrible quarterback, but fantasy-wise, due to other circumstances, he's just not a good fantasy quarterback this year, and it's just killing Allen Robinson.
Well, yeah.
You know, as bad as he is, though, he's still getting 17 to 19 points almost every week, which is below average. An average quarterback should put up 20 to 22 as far as the numbers, but
he's mediocre. He's right in there with, guess who, the two most popular waiver wire quarterbacks, which I was going to talk about later. But what the hell? Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott, right? He's right around that range. That's where he is. You know, Alex Smith on a slightly above average week. That's where he is. He's basically a waiver wire quarterback right now.
Which that never bodes well for the receivers of those average quarterbacks. Right. For the most part.
Exactly. So you're right on don't touch any Jaguars, but, Bortles hasn't been a complete washout, just mostly.
He's just a dud.
He's a QB2.
In the eyes of Oz Davis, because where you had him projected, oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why we said 9th round. But, I think QB2 is fair. If you got a two-quarterback league, he's not the worst guy to have as your QB2.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want
that. Allen Robinson's so good, so talented, and there are times he's open, and Bortles is just missing him.
Oh yeah, it's sick. I mean, you're right on that. All Jags are duds right now. They're all duds.
Yeah, they're all. It's just, we stinks.
I'm giving Robinson one more chance this week on Thursday against the Titans because divisional game, and I don't think the Titans have the greatest secondary in the world. If he can't get it open, get him going against the Titans, it's just like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do with this guy. But I have no hope that Brock Osweiler is going to be able to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins.
No.
At all.
No, Osweiler's done. That's it.
So that's really all I got on that.
The duds for me, I wanted to touch on a couple as well. This guy's been a dud from day one. And, we touched on him a little bit, but Arian Foster now off into the sunset. Also, a guy that I thought would play better this last week that really didn't do anything was Jerick McKinnon from Minnesota. I know he got banged up a little bit, but I was expecting a bigger game out of him, and I know Asiata had a ton of catches, and McKinnon went out, and they were down, so they had to throw, so that's why Asiata had the catches. But I was really counting on Jerick McKinnon this week.
Asiata seems to be the better fantasy back. I don't know exactly why. Maybe I think he just is better in the passing game, and he gets more goal line touches. But you'd think McKinnon would be better than what he is. But I would just stay with Asiata if you're going to go with a Minnesota back.
Asiata has more value per snap, basically.
Yeah.
Anytime Asiata is out there, he's a threat to be used, and it's not that way with McKinnon. That's the
right.
thing.
I think it's a good way to look at it.
Right. It's more value per snap. The same thing's happening in Denver with their running backs now. Anderson is on the field way more often, but he's not getting nearly as much action as, the dude moving in on his territory. So,
right.
I think it's that kind of situation. The other thing about Minnesota is this, and I don't know if you guys had the same experience, okay? I listen to a lot of football podcasts these days. And what everybody was talking about, and also on ESPN.com, the website, was talking about with regard to Minnesota was the secret that their offensive line was brutal, that they had a terrible offensive line and that teams were going to start taking advantage of it. Did you guys pick up on this at all? Did you hear any of this?
I heard about the problems with the offensive line. I heard 3 starters are injured. They do have a real problem at left tackle from what I can get.
Yes.
And I know about Alex Boone because I was not mad that he left our team. He's just I don't know what happened after the 2013 season, but his play the last 2 years has just been abysmal.
Right. And then we saw it this week. We saw just the pressure all the time, and just Bradford, having flashback to his Rams days, getting hit 7 times in the game or whatever it was, some crazy number. I mean, I'm not very bullish on any Vikings going forward because of this, at least in the short term. I think they
got an average offense at best.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, a lot of good unders, a lot of good under betting, I think, on the Vikings in the future. But yeah, not a lot of viable fantasy plays there either. I think
just a couple of guys that are pretty good, but they're just more of a grind them out. They're just kind of one of those throwback classic, grinded out teams with a strong defense, a good running game, and an adequate passing game that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. It's kind of a throwback team. So fantasy-wise, that's not going to bode well.
Right. They didn't play fantasy back in those days.
You couldn't. Unless you had O.J.
Rotisserie. Rotisserie and tabletop.
So real quick, leading into the Stardom Sit-'em segment, I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Matt Jones or Devontae Booker? Matt Jones against Cincinnati or Devontae Booker against San Diego?
Matt Jones. Matt Jones.
Really?
Devontae Booker is still a number 2 back. In the PPR league, I think it's probably more comparable. If you're in a non-PPR league, I don't see any way you can do it. Matt Jones, Cincinnati's struggling in their running defense, and I think he's going to get more touches. Although Chris Thompson's getting more touches too, especially passes out of the backfield. But if I just off the cuff, I'm going to go Matt Jones.
I'm going to disagree because Matt Jones disappointed me in daily fantasy last week.
Oh, it's all about you.
Well, I'm taking it from my angle. Now, look, remember, I'm the guy who's playing about 400 balls this season. So take whatever I say with a grain of salt, listeners. But I'm going to go with I'm going to go opposite Matt here. I think that again, these 2 guys in Denver, they've got a nice committee thing going on where last week, for example, their points on Yahoo were like 13 and 12. Now, both of those are viable starting running backs, especially this week when you've got 6 teams on bye. Those are both viable starting quarterbacks. It's not a situation where there's an alpha and a beta. They're going to split carries there.
Well,
and it's interesting.
I have a Jai on a bye, and I have a Jai on a bye, and I started Matt Jones and Devontae Freeman last week, and I got a combined, I think, 11 points out of the 2, and I had 46 on my bench with my backup running backs.
Ooh.
Yeah. It didn't matter.
Freeman will get you more
I was
points
losing anyway. I lost like 106 to 75 or something.
Well, I thought, what did Matt Jones end up getting last week? I thought for some reason I thought he had a decent game.
No, he had 2. Chris Thompson had a bunch of rushing yards.
Thompson had a good game. Okay.
Yeah, Thompson had a good game. Matt Jones fumbled, I think, twice.
That's right. He fumbled twice.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
it was brutal.
There was a thing today on Flea Flicker saying that, head coach Jay Gruden was going to stick with Matt Jones. So if you have Matt Jones, don't panic. He's not going to the bench.
Yeah.
He's.
I just wouldn't panic on this. So many times these guys go, every other week. It's you have one bad week and then you have a good week. I think against Cincinnati, your odds are good that he'll have a good week.
Yeah, they're the 25th ranked rush defense according to the Flea Flicker point system in our league. They're 25th against default points for running backs. So
yeah,
running backs tend to score a little higher against Cincinnati. So, but part of that is Ezekiel Elliott and C.J. Anderson both went off against them.
Yeah,
right. I like Booker. I think he's good. I'm just not sure how much of a fantasy threat he's going to be going forward. I'm just not sure yet. I think there's going to be times where he's going to be good. I just don't know. Because C.J. Anderson is still a really good back.
I think he's a moderate threat. I think he's a great fill-in on a bye week. I think
Sure, no question about that.
I mean, it's like a Martellus Bennett. He's gonna get you double-digit points, 2/3 of the time, and then sometimes he won't. But he's a viable play almost every week, even though technically he's the number 2, right? I think anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good bet.
So can I do the $1 million lineup?
Yeah, go ahead. You had said something about for DraftKings. So those of you out there that play DraftKings, Oz has a tip for you.
Or any daily fantasy, really. Not really a tip. I just figured in the studs and duds. Here, let's talk daily fantasy studs, right? Because,
you're right. We should be saying daily fantasy.
Right. These are the daily fantasy studs. So this will give you some indication just by sheer numbers who the badasses were on Sunday. At quarterback, okay, and now this is the lineup of a $1 million winner in a $4.5 million pool or something like that. There were a lot of people in it, about over 100,000. I forget exactly how many. But the winning lineup at quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Not a very popular pick. Now, a lot of these you would guess. A lot of these you would figure. DeMarco Murray, Jacquizz Rodgers, A.J. Green, Julio Jones, and Jay Ajayi, of course, are on the $1 million lineup.
So is this a Week 7 $1 million lineup, or is this what you're projecting for Week 8?
No,
okay.
This was last week. No. No one's going to project $1 million for Week 8. No one's going to get it. That's the trick. At tight end, of course, Jack Doyle. And also at wide receiver, Michael Thomas. And defense was Eagles D, which I was kind of surprised at because in daily fantasy sports, the Ravens and the Giants both had really high-scoring weeks on defense as well. But I guess the Eagles D outdid them. In any case, I guess that's kind of the secret of daily fantasy is you've got to get in the 4 or 5 superstars on their week and then just nail those other spots. Like this guy nailed Kirk Cousins, which was owned in this pool by something like 3.6% of
I had him in the one I placed first in.
Sorry?
I had Kirk Cousins in my DraftKings lineup.
Yeah, see, there you go. That was the good pick. You made the good pick, Aaron. That was the clever pick. And, Jack Doyle, I was back and forth on this guy. Ultimately, I did not go with him, but he was among the top tight end performances this week. Finally. I mean, I guess they're throwing to somebody out there in Indianapolis. So there you go. There's your $1 million lineup.
Here's my lineup from DraftKings. I just want to touch because you mentioned a lot of these guys. Quarterback Kirk Cousins got me 25.94. Le'Veon Bell 24.90. LeGarrette Blount 29.40. Jamison Crowder 20.80. Mike Evans, 29.60. A.J. Green, 33.90. Gary Barnidge, 12.60. Jacquizz Rodgers, 20.30, and the Ravens D, 17. 214 points, and I won first place for the first time ever.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
you mentioned a lot of players that a couple waiver wire pickups and just more consistent at this point in the season that you guys really ought to be looking at for your fantasy teams if you can get any of these guys.
Absolutely, especially that Jamison Crowder. If I didn't have Deshaun Jackson, I would have picked him up. I like him.
Yeah, that's Jamison Crowder is definitely a better selection if you could get him, but you might not be able to get him now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Crowder didn't even make my waiver wire list this week because he's been sucked up in over 70% of leagues in Yahoo. So I didn't even consider it. I consider him unavailable.
Gems of the year.
Yeah.
It looked like Will Fuller was going to be that guy, and Crowder kind of took it over. Another guy that
Crowder's good.
Another guy that might be up for the waiver wire find of the year is that Anunwa from the Jets.
Yep, he's pretty good too.
And he benefited from Eric Decker going out. I mean, he only had 2 catches, so PPR, he probably didn't help you very much. But he was the third player I got in my big trade this last week. And I had to start him because Beasley had a bye. And, I went with him because Deshaun was questionable. So he got me 13 points, 73 yards and a touchdown. So average, pretty average week in a non-PPR league.
Right. Well, as we get into start 'em and sit 'em, we'll hit more of the waiver wires. I got a couple of guys to start, a couple of guys to sit, and then you guys can kind of chime in if you guys think of if I left anything out. I'm still going to stay on the Marcus Mariota bandwagon. I really like their offense, and against Jacksonville at home, Marcus Mariota is a threat to both run and pass. I like him as a starter. Andy Dalton against Washington in London. Andy Dalton has been the one consistent thing about Cincinnati. Even if A.J. Green is not, Andy Dalton has really not had a bad week, especially fantasy-wise. He's a good, solid play. I'd stay with him. Matthew Stafford at Houston. Matthew Stafford is quietly having probably the best season of his career, consistency-wise. He just doesn't make all the mistakes that he was making even during the good years with Calvin Johnson. I think he's a good play against a very reeling, very suspect Houston defense. Jacquizz Rodgers is continuing to impress. I would play him against Oakland, no problem there. Oakland is not stout against the run, and Rodgers is just getting better and better. Chris Thompson, for PPR leagues, if you're non-PPR, ignore this, but if you're PPR, Chris Thompson's not a bad running back too. Especially given the bye weeks, he gets catches out of the backfield. As we talked about before, Ty Montgomery is going to get a lot of looks. They're not really, the looks are down for Randall Cobb and for Jordy Nelson. This particular week in a dome in Atlanta, they're because they have basically no running backs on the roster. They have to do a lot of spread and short passes. Ty Montgomery figures to get a lot of touches. I'd look at him. Aaron Rodgers is also not a bad play this week, given Atlanta's defense. Also, Doug Baldwin and Jimmy Graham at the Saints. I think they're going to be doing a lot more passing, and the Saints don't have a good pass defense. I like Russell Wilson to be able to find those guys for yardage. And Jack Doyle, as we talked about before, at home against Kansas City. I think he's a good play. And lastly, Matt Forte against that great Cleveland Browns defense. Matt Forte should get a lot of looks.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what?
Against Cleveland?
Okay. I can't hold back anymore. Look, here you go. Here's the upset pick of the week. Cleveland is going to beat the Jets.
That's
Jets
fine,
are going
but
down
Forte's
this
going to
week.
get touches.
I guess. But I think the Jets are going to look very bad this week. I think they're going to get blown out. You don't have
blown
a quarterback.
out?
Oh, absolutely. The Browns are going to win one game this year, and this is going to be it. The Jets are imploding from the inside. You cannot have a quarterback calling out your coach and your GM. Like, after in the post-game presser, you have the players, going at each other, picking sides and whatnot, because some of them like playing for this quarterback and some of them like playing for this quarterback. No way. This is a team in self-destruct mode right now, and I think Cleveland's going to win this game. Some of those guys are going to get great stats on Cleveland. I'm starting Terrell Pryor for sure, anywhere I can. I think Cleveland's going to win.
I don't disagree with you. I think Cleveland has a good chance to win this game. I also think Matt Forte has a good chance to get 20 fantasy points.
20? Oh, wow.
Sure.
I would.
Why not?
Surprised.
Cleveland's defense is not very good.
This is true. But I would not be surprised to see a goose egg from the Jets this game. I honestly am still trying to figure out how they
find them on short passes too.
Mm.
He's going to get touches. I don't think Brandon Marshall's necessarily going to have a good game. But I would think Matt Forte is going to get the ball a lot.
So do I start Anunwa or do I start Beasley and Hilton?
Oh, Beasley. You don't start Anunwa.
No.
Anunwa, I wouldn't start him even if Fitzpatrick was playing very well. Well, I take that back. Fitzpatrick is just – he's not last year's Fitzpatrick. And like I said, they are in disarray. I have Brandon Marshall on one of my leagues. I'm very concerned about this because I think you're right. I think they've got some problems over there. But I think that's why because it's Cleveland and because the offense goes through Matt Forte, I don't think it's a bad play this week. But I think you're right. I think there's a good chance that Cleveland wins this game.
Yeah. Go on when you guys go on the NFL Pick'em show. Take Cleveland. You'll look like geniuses. They're going to win.
I was going to until you were on them. Now I think I'm going to take the
Jets. I think we're all probably going to end up taking Cleveland. Maybe you look like a genius if you take the Jets.
I was horrific this week picking, by the way. But anyway, I agree with all of those that you just named. I hope that I'm not to the point where I got to start Chris Thompson in any leagues, but another guy I would sit is Jamal Charles. I would sit him.
Oh yeah, I haven't gotten to the sits yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You got any starts?
I don't have any faith in Jamal Charles.
Yeah, right now you're not wrong.
You know who I would start over Jamal Charles this week, and he's available in a lot of leagues for a waiver wire pickup, is Bilal Powell.
I don't know. I think you guys know that I was a Powell supporter, proponent. Draft him late because later in the year I really felt like he was going to take over. They just haven't used him as much as I'd hoped, and I think largely it's because Ryan Fitzpatrick has been so putrid this year. So I don't know that Powell. I want you to be right because I want Powell to be the guy that I said he'd be because I've got him. But I just don't see right now how he's going to take over for Forte. I don't know. I don't know what evidence you have for that. He had one good game this year.
Cleveland's defense is not very good. Look at Giovanni Bernard. He had a really good game last week against Cleveland. That second back, the smaller scat back out of the backfield that catches passes, Cleveland's notorious this year for having trouble with that. And
I know. I've been saying this all year. I just haven't seen it yet. I'm losing faith in Powell.
Playing that poorly. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was forcing the ball down the field, waiting too long to throw, making wrong reads. Fitzpatrick's doing the same thing. He's just not as good as Aaron Rodgers, so it's a lot more microscopic. But they're going to try to do the same thing that the Packers did, in my opinion, and try to dump it out of the backfield a little more, settle him down, get him confidence, get him going, and I think he's the matchup Cleveland has problems with.
Yeah, I've been saying the same thing. I've been hanging on. I've used the exact same logic the last 4 weeks, and you know what I keep seeing? Matt Forte is the guy. It doesn't matter. Matt Forte is just the guy they keep using. I don't see any reason, unless he gets hurt, to think otherwise. And I want to agree with you because I've been saying this. They have not done this one time. They haven't even. It's not just a matter of who the defense is. They're not looking at Powell the way they look at Matt Forte. They don't throw him the ball. They don't give him a lot of carries.
He doesn't get a lot of carries. I agree with that. But if Oz is right and Cleveland's ahead, that means that they got to dump the ball to the backfield.
Right, and I think that benefits Forte as well. So it's just a matter of which guy they have in there. I just don't know that I'd start Paul yet. I think I want to see him on my bench with 30 points before I put him in.
I'm not a big gambler, Matt.
Has he even hit 8 points yet?
I'm not a big gambler, but I will bet you that Bilal Powell will have more points than Chris Thompson this week.
Okay.
There's not a Jet that gets 10 fantasy points.
The more important thing is, will he have more points than, or even will he get more than 10 points this week? Has he hit 10 points this year? I don't know.
I'll take the under. I'll take the under.
Now.
He's under 10 this week. He'll be under 10 this week.
Yeah, I just don't see this happening. I'd love for you to be right, because that gives me hope that my logic has been sound.
He is not.
But I'm starting to think I'm wrong.
He's not.
So Matt,
he had 4 catches out of the backfield last week. I look for that to go up this week. I really do.
Okay, Matt.
In fact, 5 out of the 7 weeks he's had at least 4 catches. He's just not getting a lot of yards.
Not a lot of yards. It's all right. So it's like, I don't know that you start him.
I'm just going out on a limb. I'm gonna say he gets at least 4 catches, and I think he scores a touchdown this week.
Okay.
You better start him in DraftKings.
Well, that's good for like cheap. 13 points. So
wow.
If you're gonna go out on a limb, I just don't know that 13 points is a big payoff.
Is double of what he's had all year in a game.
That's my point. It's double.
I'm just telling you, I have a feeling about Bilal Powell this week. We'll talk next Tuesday.
Start him in DraftKings.
Sounds good.
Start him in DraftKings because he's going to be super cheap and no one's going to have
him. Get him.
Start him in
They might pay you
Put your money where your mouth is, Aaron.
I will, Oz, just for you, and I will text you on Monday night how I did.
And you can call your team Oz Sucks. Oz Davis Sucks. Get that last name on there. In any case, Matt, you got to give us, besides Bilal Powell, you got to give us your other sits, man. We're running against
Okay, real quick. Here's a couple of sits. Phillip Rivers at Denver. I think that's probably the obvious one. If you've got another quarterback at Denver, I just don't think that's a good play. All New Orleans players against Seattle, even though they're at home, they usually play pretty good at home. I don't have confidence that they're going to be able to move the ball against Seattle very well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some turnovers. I'd be real careful with that. All Bears players against the Vikings. The Bears at home are terrible. Minnesota's coming off a loss. That defense is going to be just out for blood. I wouldn't play anybody from the Bears this week. And I'd also be a little concerned with Tyrod Taylor against New England. I realize that they beat New England when they played them. I don't think the Buffalo Bills are ready for this. We have said this now, I swear, at least 6 straight seasons. This is the year where we see either Buffalo or the Jets or somebody take a big game in mid-season, and it never happens.
No.
I would not be willing to gamble on Tyrod Taylor against Bill Belichick and the defense this week. I'd sit him. Just play that one safe. A couple waiver wire pickups, just a couple. We talked about Jamison Crowder. Boy, if you can get him, that's a good pickup. Jameis Winston's still available in a lot of leagues. I'd be looking at him right now. He's getting better. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, if you're desperate. Now that I wrote this down and we talked about it, I don't know. You got to be real desperate if you need a quarterback too. If you got a terrible bye, it's against Cleveland. I think you got at least a 50-50 chance at something. It depends on how much you're desperate.
Look, I've I've been looking at the waiver wire quarterbacks all year, and basically you've been talking about 3 quarterbacks all year. Those 3 quarterbacks are Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, and Alex Smith. Okay? Now, how do you feel about them this week? These guys, all 3 of these guys are available in at least 50% of leagues in Yahoo and Flea Flicker. Alex Smith is still out there in 72% of Yahoo leagues, and he's playing Indianapolis this week. I mean, why mess with?
I guess those 3. I think in my head I'm going, these guys are taken. But Alex Smith, you bring up a really good point about him. The only thing is he's on the road. I realize it's Indianapolis, but when they play at home, they're just a little better.
Yeah. I mean, I pimp him every week, but the truth is that
this is in Kansas City. This is a no-brainer.
There's 6 teams off. You know, a lot of folks are going to be looking for that waiver wire quarterback. And, you know, Smith he's not going to get you a lot of points, but he'll get you some points. I mean, what are you going to do? Get Case Keenum? I don't think so. You know, go with
Carson Wentz is an interesting thought. Dak Prescott to me seems very obvious. If you can get Dak Prescott, geez, get him now.
Well, Carson Wentz, thing is, you're going to be dropping him in 2-3 weeks when Tony Romo comes back, and since he's the owner's favorite quarterback, he's going to start. You know,
if they really do that,
you're going to see riots in Dallas. If
oh my gosh, you can't do that.
Hell, the whole Dallas-Fort Worth metro.
Dak Prescott is borderline elite quarterback this year.
I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past the old man.
So those are my sits this week, and you know, for the most part, you know, I'm sure there's a few other guys that we missed, but I think we touched on a few, and a few waiver wire pickups. So, what do you got for waiver wire pickups, streaming defenses, and missed the last of it for the last 5-6 minutes?
Okay, well, we've been talking about a lot of this stuff, so let me just go straight down to actually, I wanted to ask you guys real quick. Niall Davis? I mean,
no.
Anything there? No? Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay. Because
a lot of people that are in my league, because I'm from Green Bay, a lot of people in my leagues have stashed them, picked them up, and put them on the put them on their bench. So just in case he blows up, but I don't see it happening. Starks will be back in a few weeks, and it's basically maybe a kick return guy to take Ty Montgomery off kick return so he can be more involved in the offense.
I don't know, Aaron. I don't know how you feel about it, but you know, I don't think it's going to take some time for him to learn the offense. And to be honest, you know, when Niall Davis was good as a backup running back, that was a few years ago. He's been just kind of dormant for a while, and we're just going to expect him to just show up. I don't think that's realistic. You know, kick returner, yes. Backup running back, yes.
He was averaging 0.8 yards a carry, and
right,
or something ridiculous. And he was the 4th on the Kansas City depth chart for a reason. You know,
exactly.
I don't think he's going to come here and just blow up. Yeah, I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. And to be honest, I don't think he'll get the opportunity to let it happen unless he spells Montgomery and busts a big one. And I mean, he could be a 6-8 points, you know, maybe, but I just don't see a lot of fantasy value right now. And
he's been a vogue topic of conversation lately, and since you guys know more about Green Bay, you have better insight into the Packers than I do, I figured I'd throw it at you. So let's just go straight to wide receivers. What about Devontae Adams? How do you like this guy? 16 targets last week. Do you like him a little bit more?
He's also taken in a lot of leagues. I did put in for him in 1 or 2 leagues, but I'm not expecting to get him because I'm not near the bottom.
You're low on the waiver wire. Yeah, this is the week when he gets taken up. We've also got Brandon LaFell, who's owned in 13% of Yahoo leagues. I can understand why he's scaring people off a little bit, but geez, 3 weeks ago against Dallas, he had almost 27. This week against Cleveland, he had 18. He can do some damage against, like, for example, Washington this week if A.J. Green doesn't go off so goddamn much.
He's such a situational guy, and that's what Tyler Boyd's problem is, too.
Right. And then I advanced Marquise Lee earlier, so I don't know if you want to take a swing on him. Blake Bortles, my guy Blake Bortles is, well, we'll talk about him in a minute. Let's see, at tight end, a bit frustrating for guys like me. I mean, I thought I had a great duo starting the season. I got Martellus Bennett and Gary Barnidge, but you can never tell when one of those guys is going to score. So I've been looking at tight ends a lot, and basically I never bite the bullet and pick one up. But who's still out there? Jack Doyle is still out there in a lot of leagues. You know, he went off this week, but I'm kind of shy about anybody that wants to catch the ball in Indianapolis because any second now Andrew Luck's going to get hit and be done for the season. So I'm convinced of that. Yeah, well, seriously, he is, isn't he? There's no way he's going to finish this season. There's no way. He's playing without an offensive line, you know, more or less. I mean, what's he going to do? So I don't like, in the long term, I don't like any receiver in Indianapolis, including the tight ends. C.J. Fedorowicz, does anybody like him? Or just because he plays on Houston, he's snake bit as well? Can I interest in C.J.? Nah, see, that's what I figured. Right, he's playing with Houston.
Anything on Houston right now. I mean, if only Lamar Miller is viable.
Right.
When DeAndre Hopkins, one of the top 3 receivers in the league, 3 or 4 guys, is down near nothing, you just their passing threat is just nothing. I wouldn't even look at it.
And finally, my favorite bit, defenses. In my various leagues, I ended up going with 2 streaming defenses last week. The Giants, like I said on this show, because they went up against my Rams. And true to form, Case threw 4 interceptions, including 1 for a touchdown. So you got a lot of points out of the Giants, and the Ravens did pretty well.
That was a good call.
Yeah, I had them in a couple of leagues. Well, yeah, the Rams are almost starting to get into that category with, like, the 49ers and the Browns. It's just like pick the defense that's playing them. Unfortunately, the defense that's playing the Rams this week is bye, so not available.
Yeah, same here. We can't lose this week.
Yeah, how about it? That's even better than a tie. In any case, let's see, for defenses, not a lot of great defenses out there, right? Because 6 teams on bye. But, hey, how about the Titans against the Jags? The Jags are on a short week playing away, and my guy Blake Bortles is 2-14 lifetime, not in Jacksonville, or I guess London, because we're just counting away games here. And London is a home game for Jacksonville every year. I kind of like, here's an interesting flyer for you. How about Oakland against Tampa Bay? Oakland defense against Tampa Bay. Now, Oakland defense has some talented players. They've been kind of overwhelming this year, but I think that they can, occasionally they can make a difference. They might get some turnovers in this game. So I'm kind of looking at Oakland. Arizona defense against Carolina. Carolina is second in turnovers. Now, they've had the bye week, so they might be a little more prepared for this game. I mean, Carolina might actually get their second win of the season. So Arizona defense might not be great, but something to consider. And I'll tell you a defense that I am seriously considering this week, playing the team that leads the NFL in turnovers, the New York Jets. Yes, Browns defense. If you want an excuse to play the Cleveland defense in a week when the Cavaliers are opening their title defensive season and the Indians are in the World Series, take the Browns defense this week.
That is a bold pick. Just because
I don't know if
how many
them, but
has anyone ever taken Cleveland in fantasy in the last 5 years?
Yeah, see,
hold
on.
I feel like I'm dreaming. The Cleveland Browns defense?
Sure.
I mean, LeBron James probably scored more points tonight than the Cleveland Browns defense has put up in fantasy points all year.
Yeah. But they're riding
34,
that wave.
By the way.
They're riding the wave. They're riding the wave of Cleveland sports success.
I don't know. I would rather pick up the Jets or the Cowboys or
I would go with Tennessee against Jacksonville. I like Tennessee's defense.
Tennessee is a good pick. Tennessee is Tennessee is the strongest of that list that I just rattled off.
Yeah, I mean,
although I think Oakland could surprise. I
possibly.
think
I like Tampa's offense right now.
Oz, if you
I like
come
Barber.
next week,
I like Rodgers.
Oz, if you come on the show next week and you tell us to pick up Ryan Tannehill, I'm talking money.
No, I just said this week they would be smart if they shifted to a running game. They just gave it to a Ajayi. I mean, keep it out of Tannehill's hands.
They're not going to lose this week. They have a bye.
There you go. See, they're in the same boat as the Rams and the 49ers.
Ryan Tannehill.
Well, there you have it. We got about a minute, guys.
Hey, excellent.
All right.
We got to wrap this up. We got about a minute left. So I think thank you guys. I think we covered most everything we wanted to cover. We got all the big topics out of the way, and I think we got a lot of good advice out there. We're not always right, but I think we've been right a lot the last few weeks. So heed some of the advice, and good luck to everybody in all their fantasy games. So be sure to check out thegruelingtruth.net for articles and podcasts for whatever sports team or sport that you like to follow. And so we got a lot coming up, so be sure to follow us on Twitter at Grueling Truth and on our Facebook page. So for Aaron Zepnick, Oz Davis, I'm Matt Andruscavage. You've been listening to The Truth About Fantasy Football on the Grueling Truth Radio Network, where the legends speak.